So you guys were enjoying the vibes I could see in the chat, but yes, ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome. Just cover my button. I've been doing. I'm a professional streamer. I've been streaming for 2 years, and I still am like, where's the? Hi, I'm Tristan Johnson, the host of this here stream you're watching right now, which is called the Reactor. Yeah, let's see. I got a spiel to run through since we're just getting started. Yes, the Reactor, or I am Tristan Johnson, the host of YouTube channels Step Back History and Tristan Won't Shut Up. And I stream 3 times a week on Mondays, Eastern time, by the way. This is all Eastern U.S. time. Yeah, Mondays, I stream a show called The Monday Discourse, which is where we have an early afternoon chat about the weirdness of the internet and answer some questions and all sorts of stuff already. Yeah, and that's with my wonderful eternal co-host, Mia Mulder. And yeah, she and I have a really good time. And then Tuesday nights, I have my sort of evening show, my more chill, relaxed show called Step Back Tonight, which I do on Tuesdays from 7 till 9. And that's a fun one. That's one where, like, it's just me hanging with you. No other artifice for the show. It's just you, chat, this little thingy that's moving up here, and me. And the YouTube chat. But, as you guys know, between YouTube chat and Twitch chat, you both know which one's my favorite. So, I don't even need to say. And yeah, okay, so the Reactor is the show I do on Fridays, which is what you're watching right now. It goes from 12 till 2, and we take links that have been submitted to me via the Discord server, and I, watch YouTube videos or other things. I react to content sent to me in a humorous fashion or a thoughtful fashion. I go by, and that's my whole schedule. I go by he, him pronouns. And if you want to see my video work, you can go to stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com or hit me up as TristanPEJ on Twitter. Yeah. And if you are on Twitch right now, I just want to let you know that if you have Amazon Prime, which a lot of people do, you get the fast delivery or the TV shows or whatnot, the Apple Music, if you're one of the 6 people who uses Apple Music, or not Apple Music, Amazon Music, is that even a thing? I actually don't know. I don't know if Amazon tried to take a bite of the Spotify. Anyways, if you have Amazon Prime for one of the myriad things that it provides, you get a free Twitch Prime subscription every month, and that is basically a way for you to, spending no more of your own money. If anything, if you don't spend it, Jeff Bezos gets to keep your money, and then, as I say, to have sex with. And you can use it to help a independent Twitch creator. I would love it if you were to just do that for any creators that you're into, but if you choose me, I will be very grateful as well. I got rent to pay, I got cats to feed, etc., etc., and this is my work. So yeah, if you got those, if you got that Amazon Prime, it helps. Yeah, helps a lot. I've also have some content. I also have some content on the Barbie. Yeah, so my latest video on Tristan Won't Shut Up was a video about innovation, motivation, and financial incentives, and how financial incentives actually don't work. And maybe this whole idea that we need to starve children in order to motivate people is maybe not the most sound argument. And my next video on that channel is going to be about sort of a post-mortem on the 2020 election. It should be coming out on Monday, except for patrons, who patrons can actually see it now. It's I put it up last night, so You can watch that video now if you are a patron. If not, Monday around 11 a.m. or so. And on Step Back, my last video was about the rights abuse of history and sort of that whole thing. That was kind of my right before the election video. And then my next Step Back video, I'm going to be editing this weekend. So my hope is that it will be available on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, you're going to get a new Step Back video. And it's going to be about Vietnam and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, that's the whole opening shtick out of the way. Let's see what's going on in chat land. So last I saw, you guys were vibing with the music, which is very nice. Enjoy the chill wave. Yeah, all right. You love my streams. It's perfect while you're playing Civ. Awesome. If you're playing right now, you should, I don't know, nuke India. That's the joke, right? Or no, India nuke you. That's the joke. Fucking Gandhi. Fucking Gandhi. I don't know. I haven't. The only Civilization I've ever played was Civ 5, and it was before they added too many expansions. And I would just I think I beat the game once the entire time. You always end up Shazamming the chill vibes before the stream starts. Very good. How do streams even work on the other side? What's it called? We have a program. There's a program called Streamlabs OBS that sort of you work with that. Some people have some more fancy software that makes it easier to control audio and stuff like that, but I don't have that. Let's see. Can we not talk about Trump, please? We'll see. People are going to ask me things, and a lot of people like to ask me things about, Trump. Hey, I'm 17. Was wondering if you could give some advice on what I can do. It just feels so hopeless here. I know that feeling. Oh boy. Cutting deep. I suppose the biggest thing that I always say is that we're living in a really weird and hard time of history. And it's times like these in our history when big things can change. And that's for both good and bad. And so at this point, while the world does seem like it's a big ass question mark, that you can be part of what's going to be the big battle, and you might be able to be part of shaping whatever the next world looks like after this happens. And so we can't really afford to give up, Wait, hold up. You stream on Twitch and YouTube? How the fuck do you find that kind of processor? I don't know. I bought this there's a what's it called? Restream is a website that I use that does a lot of the server-y stuff. All right. Do you think extra from YouTube or stream views from premium? I think you do, yeah. I think people who have YouTube premium do actually get give me. I get watch time, and that converts into premium money. So I imagine it does. I dropped 10 links just before the stream started. Did you catch them? Probably not. I collected my list this morning. If Amazon or Facebook were to be nationalized, would it be split between countries, or should the UN just take ownership? I mean, if the UN took ownership, that would be pretty cool. And if Amazon was just run by the United Nations, and you just invented and you just made everything free or whatever, you just nationalized or just nationalized and created a global government at the same time, which would be pretty sweet. I doubt that's how it's going to turn out, but be pretty cool. All hail United Nations and President Avasarala, or General Secretary, I think her title is. All right. Hi, everybody. Wait, we're getting a step back video early? Yeah, I'm trying. Degree of success. I'm trying to get to a point where I can... Oh, what's it called? Trying to get to a point where I am making more step back videos, but shorter step back videos. And, but still not losing, like, you know, doing a lot of research on one topic and some other stuff. So, so this video coming out is sort of going to be one of like a topic that will show up in a bunch of videos. Anyways, so I'm going to try to get at least maybe one every 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, but making them shorter. Didn't work this time though. The video I recorded was still pretty long. Fucking candy, Winston Churchill. Civ isn't really a 4X kind of game. It feels like it's a board game that everyone says is a 4X game. Where'd you get your AOC shirt? I tried buying one off her site, but you need to be a U.S. citizen to get money. Yeah, I just used the address of my in-laws. And then I picked up the AOC shirt when I... what's it called? Picked up the AOC shirt when I went to go visit for Christmas. So yes, because my wife's an American citizen but doesn't have an American address, so she would do that for me. Do you play Forge of Empires or Civ 6? I don't play either of them. Okay. Jacobin magazine, their takes on socialism. I mean, Jacobin's a pretty good magazine. I don't know if I have too much of an in-depth knowledge of like their takes on socialism, particularly, but they're like, you know, for news, they seem solid. I hear cat in the background. Yeah, Romeo's just running around the house for some reason. You'd kill for an AOC shirt? I actually think that, Matt, I think that there's like services, at least they used to exist. It could be that this pandemic kind of ruined them, but there are services out there where you can pay to buy things with an American address, and then it goes to the company, and the company mails it to you across the border. That is a thing that, yeah. Alrighty, so I guess we should probably put the videos on. People are starting to get grouchy that I'm not on the thing yet. So yeah, let's have some chill vibes and enjoy a Friday the 13th episode of the Reactor. All right, so this first video is on the tragic story behind the worst fantasy book ever written. I'm wondering if this is the story about the shut-in guy who wrote a whole bunch of fantasy novels, like that was like 10,000 pages of fantasy novel, and it showed that he was like really like, you know, not all there. Like he was kind of like living in weird delusions and things like that, and at the same time like spent his entire life alone, and none of this work was discovered until after he died and they were cleaning out his apartment. There's a documentary about him on Netflix. It was pretty good.
Hello, my beautiful watchers. You know that thing that video essayists do where they start their presentation with something seemingly irrelevant to the title and you're momentarily confused but assume it's going to make sense later, and it usually does? In 2011, 13-year-old Rebecca Black performed in a music video titled Friday. Due to a combination of cringy lyrics, excessive auto-tune, and general low quality in everything except production value, the video quickly went viral on YouTube and social media as people delighted in mocking its awfulness and directed others to it so they could do the same. The fourth video I ever uploaded to YouTube was a meaningless sketch where I drank a lot of Red Bull, danced to the Lord of the Rings remix song They're Taking the Hobbits to Isengard, and occasionally cut to me reacting to and mocking Friday. I jumped on the bandwagon, made fun of the popular...
Oh boy, that was a very 2012 video.
8 years later, I was mildly perplexed to hear that Rebecca Black was performing again, and that she seemed to be finding an appreciative audience.
Yeah, she's what's it called? She's like a legit Instagram type celebrity now. And yeah, she has like some real fans. Turn it up a bit. Okay, I can do that. Did you mean Henry Darger? That was a really interesting story. I think that is who I was referring to. Yeah.
Shortly later, I watched a video on the subject by Sarah Z. Z? You know, I think I've been in America for so long I've forgotten which one of these is right and which one would be a betrayal of my countrymen to say. Anyway, Sarah laid out the details of the story behind Rebecca Black's Friday, that this young lady had been the victim of a predatory producer and company that made bad music videos and allowed the child performing the song to take all the social media backlash while they collected all the ad revenue from it going viral. And backlash there had been. Black had been forced to drop out of public school due to the constant bullying she had received from being the Friday girl.
Yeah, like that artist was so he was so sheltered. He had such he didn't know that women didn't have penises. Like, as an example, like one of the weird things about his work is that like he drew lots of art related to it, and the three main characters were girls, and he did not know that girls didn't have penises, and so like it, you know, there's some like really strange drawings and stuff like that. It's quite a strange thing.
For years and years, no one had let her move on from this one slightly cringy thing she'd done as a teenager, vastly changing the course of her young life. I felt...
Yeah, she was like 13 or something when Friday happened. Can you imagine? I couldn't handle that. I can't handle like one person saying a mean thing about me on the internet now. And like, Rebecca Black went through all that when she was like 13? Holy shit.
Felt like shit for my small but existent participation in the angry mob that tried to tear this poor girl's life apart. Fortunately, it does appear that Black has success.
Says girls don't have penises. Yes, fair. Alright. Sorry. Well, I mean, this guy like died like in the 1930s. So, yeah. It was also a different kind of time in relations between men and women and stuff, and the birds and the bees talk and everything.
Put Friday mostly behind her and reclaimed her voice, starting her own YouTube channel and producing her own songs that she has taken on tour to, as I said, an appreciative audience. Her attitude on social media seems to be one of newfound empowerment. So, happy ending there, but I was still heartbroken and ashamed of what I had done, thought and said, and swore an oath to never take part in bullying behaviour again, no matter how fun, trendy or tempting it is to do so. Enter The Eye of Argon. The Eye of Argon by Jim Tice originally appeared in the 10th issue of Ozfan, a science fiction magazine, in 1970. It is generally considered to be either the worst or at least one of the worst fantasy books ever written. For the last couple of decades, live readings of this book have been a source of entertainment and writing.
So that's not this then. Okay. There was also, what was that novel? The Elemental Magics or whatever by... Ulalalia or whatever.
And literary themed conventions. Performances have been organised to recreate passages and highlight just how silly they look and sound. Games have been invented to see if people can get through entire chapters without laughing, or can read the original text while resisting the urge to intentionally or automatically correct for the spelling and grammatical errors. And don't get me wrong, the thesis of this video is not that the book is not bad, it is just as bad as everyone says. Tice falls into every last bad writing trope there is.
This is the YouTuber Dominic Noble. If he was a Corbyn supporter, that's good.
and invent some new ones of his own. The story is a cliched adolescent fantasy about a mighty barbarian traveling fantasy lands and using his bulging muscles to defeat his foes and bed comely wenches. Tice also continuously uses words in slightly the wrong context, rendering the sentence nonsensical and suggesting that he was using a thesaurus to increase his vocabulary without fully understanding the true meaning of the words he was choosing. Everything is overwordy and overdescribed, sequential sentences will contradict each other, the story is at best a meandering ramble, and there are indeed a lot of spelling and grammatical errors in the original draft. The book fell under my radar a little while ago after I realized that reviews of terrible books tended to be very successful for me because y'all love to see me exasperated, and The Eye of Argon tended to top every so bad it's funny book list I found online, making it a prime target. I even went as far as to order my own copy of the book, noting at the time that it was a little strange that the author didn't appear to have anything to do with distributing it. My concerns began when I started doing my customary research into the book's backstory and immediately started getting Friday-related alarm bells going off in my head. Let me start at the beginning and hopefully you'll see it too. I should admit though that the sources I've been drawing from and researching for this video were a little bit sparse and I don't think always fully verified themselves. Because this was a pre-internet event.
Okay. So Romeo's here.
That's not super well known outside of literary circles. I didn't have a huge
He's
amount
big
of
and
knowledge to
clumsy,
work
so.
with, and let's face
Hey,
it, I'm
Stealth
not
Archer,
invested-
thank you so much.
From Al's Toy Barn, I am now C19 positive.
Ah, damn.
Okay, too dark of an opener. How goes the cat life?
Cat Life's pretty good. Thank you for subscribing. That's 10 months, Stealth Archer. Much appreciated. I'm sorry if you are COVID-19 positive. Holy shit. Just, I hope, take care of yourself. Don't try to overexert yourself, and I hope everything goes okay.
Journalists, so despite my best efforts, it's possible that there are some unintentional, glaring factual errors in this video that I can only apologize for. Tice was 16 years old when his novelette was published in Osfan. 3 issues later, they also published an interview with him where he talked about his story. Tice comes off as pretty chill and humble about the whole thing, acknowledging that his book was pretty badly structured and in general wasn't great due to his lack of writing experience, but he seemed really excited and proud that his first ever book was published in any capacity. Not long after that, a copy of his story found its way to science fiction author Thomas N. Scotia, who was so delighted by its awfulness, he sent it to another author, Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough, who was also highly amused, keeping her copy for years so she could loan it out to friends. Her then husband, Don Simpson, eventually made a meticulous copy of the text, which was later digitized as home computers started becoming more common. The text was eventually printed, then later reprinted in chapbook form by Hypatia Press, who failed to credit Tice as the author. The company admitted that they had not consulted with Tice before any of these publishings and had omitted his name in the vain hope that he would not become aware of it and try to stop them. As a result, the book gained even more widespread notoriety as being the worst thing ever written, but for a while was assumed to either be a joke or an unclaimed anonymous work before it was eventually reattributed to Tice. In 1984, Tice was interviewed on a Californian radio talk show, and it became immediately apparent that the constant mockery of his work had taken a pretty serious toll on him emotionally. Now deeply embarrassed by his story, all passion for writing was gone for him, and he claims he intends to never write anything else ever again. He also mentions that he's been struggling in his personal life due to constant bullying he'd received from being the Eye of Argon guy. For years and years, no one had let him move on from this one slightly cringy thing he had done as a teenager. I would love to say that Tice's story has an equally happy ending to Black's, but unfortunately, as far as I can see, he never did write anything ever again, and he never will, because he died in 2002, aged 48. Copies of The Eye of Argon continued to circulate for a few more years until what had been its missing ending was discovered and the first paperback copy of the complete story was published by John Betancourt of Wildside Press. Various other copies popped up occasionally, claiming to be truer replications of the original text with all its errors and hand-drawn illustrations in the margins. The fun and games at the book's expense continue to this day at various events and in the newly emerged BookTube community. The comparison to Friday isn't perfect, as the pre-internet backlash that Jim Tice received was drip-fed to him over decades, while Rebecca Black got hers all at once, but you see how everyone's glee at both projects' incompetence came at a price for the creators. The thing that actually makes Tice's story slightly more horrifying to me was the utter lack of consent or agency
very
granted
persistent
to
those
him
bots
in
are
regards to the
indeed.
distribution of his work. I also couldn't find any evidence that suggested he made any money from the various printings of his novelette. Like I said, The Eye of Argon is
Latest Thoughts Line video? Oh, what's it about?
Bad, but it's not excessively so by today's standards. I mean, I could go to Wattpad, Reddit, or numerous fanfiction forums and find something on par with this in less than 5 minutes. Some of Jenny Nicholson's best videos are based on her doing exactly that.
Oh yeah, this guy watches a lot of BreadTube videos.
Fair to me that this was deemed the worst fantasy book ever, considering the author doesn't appear to have ever had any intention.
Jenny Nicholson, like when you're on Jenny Nicholson, you've the whole core. You're like, what's it called? She's like BreadTube adjacent.
Turning it into a book. I want to make it clear that this is not a call-out video for anyone who has taken part in this decade's...
She is part of the BreadTube elite neoliberal cult, but
long mockery of the Eye of Argon. Part of the reason I made my Friday-related confession...
Which guy watches BreadTube videos? This guy. Yeah.
The start was to show I am not the sinless one throwing the first stone here. So bad it's good media, it brings genuine joy to people, and in other circumstances, that is a wonderful thing. The problem is, we sometimes forget that the people...
You know who else is BreadTube skimmer, I've noticed, is Hank Green. Hank Green follows a lot of BreadTubers on Twitter. And I remembered at 2018, I was at an event with him, and he saw that we had at this 2018 event, I had to smuggle Natalie into it. And when he found out that she was there, he like beelined.
People who make these things are human beings.
This is 2018, so this is like when Natalie was like big but not like, huge. Tom Scott too, right? Yeah. Hello, it is MIA Mulder. Hank Green wishes he was in BreadTube. This is true. Hank Green tries, but then he's like, oh, but I forgot that I still have millions of dollars and own a giant business. Tom is a good lad. What's it called? So Tom Scott, one of my favorite Tom Scott stories is that when we were allowed to go outside and COVID wasn't just running the country, we used to go to what's it called? We used to go to a thing called VidCon, and I meet Tom Scott every single year at VidCon, where to the point where he recognizes me, but he never remembers my name. And so I always reintroduce it. But also one of the things that Tom Scott does is he every January he goes on vacation, and he has small-time YouTube creators make videos for his channel, and it sort of gives them a really big boost. I've had several of my friends over in the education YouTube space, go for it. Get that and having it, have a big, boost for their YouTube channels. Anyways, I apply every year and have been rejected a lot, and almost everybody gets rejected, but he always feels so bad when I mention that was a thing. And he tries to make sure that I didn't take it personally, and I'm like, I don't. But he seems to have had to deal with a lot of spurred creators or something.
And the fun that we have,
or he's just a big, he's a big nice boy.
Their expense can have drastic negative effects on them. The fact that this was the work of a minor makes it even more tragic to me. I see the Eye of Argon as a rare pre-internet example of something that's becoming increasingly common now, where doing something cringy as a child or teen can end up haunting you forever. Would Tice have gone on to become a great writer? I mean, who knows, but I don't see the Eye of Argon as...
It's true, we're never going to see anything truly unique and original if, being cringe in your art, when you're just learning how to be a person and a creative person, now can haunt you forever. It's fucking true. I'm so glad that when I started Step Back, and even that was some pretty cringy stuff that I made really early on, but my old YouTube channel, I'm first of all glad that Facebook didn't come out until I was out of high school. So that I'm very grateful for. The other thing is that my old YouTube channel didn't really get all that popular Cringe is a human trait. Cringe is sort of like a phase you go through when you're learning a lot of things.
Evidence that that's impossible. Some authors have natural talent, some are late bloomers, and some get better slowly over time with lots of hard work and practice until they can put out some pretty solid work that people enjoy. The fact that he actually started, finished, and submitted his story to a...
The other thing, too, is that when I was of the cringe years, there was still internet to put stuff up on, but everything was through, like, pseudonyms. Like, everything wasn't tied to your real-life name anymore, as, like, it is today. I mean, yeah, it's like it can pop back up. It's a phase that can pop back up too. Yeah, I basically never left, so I don't know.
Magazine puts him ahead of thousands of other wannabe authors of any age in my books. Honestly, though, I think that's almost irrelevant because the 17-year-old that was interviewed sounded like writing was making him happy, and the adult that we heard from later sounded like he'd love nothing more than the impossible dream of the whole thing just going away. People took that youthful eagerness for the craft away from him with their laughter, and that just kind of sucks. Sometimes we get lucky with our so bad it's funny media, and we're gifted a Tommy Wiseau who is so disconnected from reality they take all the negativity in stride and use it to their advantage, or someone like E.L. James who is so arrogant about their horrible, damaging work that you don't feel like you have to worry about trashing it. But sometimes people get hurt, and you don't find out about it until much too late. You can end up with situations like Tice's, or like when the actor who played Jar Jar Binks was almost driven to suicide from all the backlash against him. You could make the argument that in this case there's no more harm that can be done. The author is no longer with us, so there's no more feelings to be hurt, no more dreams to squash. Why not have some fun with this book? And while that's not a completely illogical line of thought, thanks to my opening ramble, you now know about my oath of no intentional bullying ever again, so I am going to have to sit this one out. So, yeah, The Eye of Argon, a pretty terrible short story written by a first-time teenage author that ended up spiraling well out of his control and spreading around the world, bringing mirth and merriment to thousands, but crushing the dreams of its creator. I dearly hope that Tice found satisfaction and happiness in his life in some avenue that wasn't writing, and well, here's hoping one day I find a book equally as bad with a less depressing backstory, so we can all enjoy it guilt-free. Thank you for joining me, my beautiful watchers. Do remember that, unlike certain unlucky authors, I would like my work to become widespread, and the...
Can we bully Ben Shapiro for his shitty novel? Yes. Because Ben Shapiro... Anybody who inspires a mass shooter, I think you can be okay making fun of them. I think that's... So this is a good video. We learned a lot about empathy. And I thought it was a really good thing to do. I think that I jive with this message pretty much. Yeah, Punch Up. Ben Shapiro has written, I think, at least one novel, and they are apparently just like the absolute worst. With like showing like absolute, like they're like political thrillers that have like no understanding of like how government works or why people do things, and sort of that conservative thought that everybody who is evil because they're bad people and they just want evil things and they twirl their mustache, but like nothing about like, you know, why people do things. Wet ass. Besides, the other thing too is that Ben Shapiro bullies himself on a regular basis with like wet ass P word and stuff, so you know he's encouraging it. Maybe he's just like a really like deep like performance artist or something like that. Like this is like Sacha Baron Cohen, who's been like just like in like the deepest of undercover, preparing for the funniest movie. Like Ben Shapiro is sort of like a, what's it called? Like a you know, like a Ali G type character, and is just like, we're just waiting. And then when Ben Shapiro finishes, he like makes a movie, and it's like the funniest thing he's ever seen because he just like recorded all these weird conversations. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. That would be fucking hilarious though. So this is, oh boy, this is a strangely, okay. Interesting, strangely named movie. Are Somali People Black? This is from Nothing, and I haven't seen From Nothing in a little while, so I'm kind of excited to see how he's been doing. He writes about Muslim terrorists in the Middle East despite knowing nothing about their culture. Yeah, that's very true. Alrighty, so let's see. This is so yeah. Let's see what From Nothing's been up to. Except with Jabari's been up to.
Hello everyone, it's Jabbar here.
He's turned into a VTuber.
Today's video
He's turned into that's awesome. Now I want to see him play some video games.
is a patron request. If you would like to make a video request of your own, you can do so by becoming a patron. The link to this can be found below. A Ugandan man travels to a Somali airport in the city of Mogadishu. He shows his diplomatic passport to the officers, only for them to react with shock that this Bantu man has a Somali diplomatic passport. They demand that he pay them $50 and address him in English, only for the Ugandan man to sternly reply back in fluent Somali, much to the surprise of the officers. His ordeal was eventually taken up to the Parliament of Somalia, where he expressed that his experience would have been labeled as racist had it been in America, Europe, Asia, or elsewhere, and that it's quite a shame that, with Africa being a continent full of black people, he's still being treated like an outcast by other black people who have lighter skin than him. This problem seems to run rampant throughout the continent of Africa, but to the extreme that this Ugandan man takes it seems to be restricted to East African nations, with Somalia being a major culprit. From a Western perspective, this makes little sense considering historically, all racial discrimination collectively grouped all peoples of African descent into the same category. So why does this color caste system exist all the way over in the Horn of Africa?
Let me guess,
and in
colonization.
inhabited almost exclusively by black people. Is this some deeply ingrained cultural system that has existed since ancient times, or is it simply a product of colonialist ideologies imported by Europeans? Let's find out.
Was this country that was a British colony for like hundreds of years, or I don't even know hundreds of years, for critical decades as all of the nationalism was being developed. I'm curious where this is going to go, British people.
But before we begin, this video is sponsored by NordPass, a new service powered by the more popular NordVPN service. NordPass not only generates highly complex passwords and instant account information, better than you ever could on care of all of that, and works on worry, your mobile devices can be protected as well. You can get 50% off of the already growth from nothing in the process. Everybody wins. Anyway, without further ado, let's continue.
Like 3 minutes into the video, the first 2 minutes was a NordVPN thing.
With the video. In modern times, Somali scholarship has systematically been feeding into the idea of one unified Somali ethnic group, fueled by the fact that the majority of the population speak the same language and practice the same religion. This argument is further
I forgot that
exemplified by
Italy
the fact
did too,
that
yeah.
Most African countries do not share these characteristics.
Somalia also, before that, was also colonized by Oman for a little while. But that's like that's a whole story in of itself.
And thus lack any real sense of unified national identity. For example, a Nigerian person is more likely to identify with their specific ethnic group rather than their country, a concept that has been systematically wiped away from the Somali people. However, despite the shared national identity, Somalia has historically suffered from a deeply ingrained caste system, paralleling the ones found in several kingdoms throughout world history, notably those of the Indian subcontinent. This caste system extended not just into the Bantu populations, but also the Somali people themselves, but we'll cover the latter later. For now, we'll just focus on the discrimination against Bantu peoples. So, firstly, Somali people have historically been participants in the Arabic slave trade, or more properly, the Islamic slave trade, as it was not just exclusive to Arabic merchants. This trade took place primarily in East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. It was much older and existed for much longer than the transatlantic slave trade, and as a result, it was deeply ingrained in the societies of East Africans. In more recent times, it affected the overall views and perceptions that the inhabitants had on outsiders and of one another, even up to present day. Bantu pagans from the interior of the African continent were the primary source of slaves for the trade network, and consequentially, there are three distinct tiers within the modern Bantu Jariri community, all of which are at the bottom end of the Somali caste system. Runaway slaves, freed slaves, and the indigenous Bantu community that has never been enslaved. The formation of the first two can be traced back to the large sums of Bantu slaves being imported to Somalia from the Swahili coast during the 19th century. As mentioned earlier, this trade network had existed since ancient times, but was bolstered by Italian colonial authorities during this era who condoned a slave regime. This massive quantity of slaves fueled a boom in the economy of the region, and by 1910, 33% of all of Mogadishu's inhabitants were slaves. These figures remained even after the Italian government.
Is this sus? It could be sus. Usually when something is like Arabs bad, that comes up, that sometimes ends up being pretty sus. Well, we can just move on. I don't want to watch anything where they're bad. Let's see what this is. Let's watch something a little more fun. Cancelled Terra Nova by Bright Sun Films. This sounds more fun for the whole family. We don't have to decide whether or not a history video is sus.
What's up, guys? My name is Jake. Welcome to our brand new show, Cancelled. There's always been topics that I've wanted to use on Abandoned, but just haven't fit the show properly. So this is the show where we'll look into some of the television shows, products, and everything else that were eventually cancelled. I would like to warn everyone, there will be spoilers in this video. Back in 2011, a television show premiered named Terra Nova. Even though I knew it had major flaws,
Oh man, I have a feeling I might have seen the pilot for this show and nothing else. It was like some weird TV show where they found another Earth that they could like colonize, but it was like full of dinosaurs or something. I don't know. The show seemed pretty weird.
Away spider, go, go, go.
I did appreciate its sense of scale, charm, and ambition. However, following its last episode of Season 1, the show was announced that it was going to be cancelled. So why was Fox's new flagship show cancelled after only one season? Well, the show started back in 2010 when the Fox network announced they would be producing a dramatic sci-fi show called Terra Nova, with Alex Graves signing on to direct the pilot episode. As development continued, Steven Spielberg signed on to executive produce the show, and the filming locations were set in Australia. The show took place in the year 2149 and followed the Shannon family as they struggled to live on a dying planet. Scientists found a way to transport humans 85 million years into the past, and in doing so a colony was created called Terra Nova, a second chance for the human race. Other plotlines drove characters into doing things, dinosaurs are hungry, and there's an evil faction.
What was sus with that video? It was making a bunch of these like really like these claims about the Arab slave trade that were very, very, very what's it called, like Arabs bad sounding, and someone in the chat was like, this is not what this is like, and I didn't know enough about it to fight either way, so I dropped it.
In the past, it starred Jason O'Mara, Shelley Kahn, Christine Adams, Landon Lebaron, Naomi Scott, Alana Mansour, and Stephen Lang. There is also a rather large list of reoccurring supporting characters. Really, most of the cast was relatively unknown, except for Stephen Lang, who is best known for his antagonist role in James Cameron's Avatar.
Oh yeah, it's that
Fox ordered
guy.
13 episodes to make up the first season, with a budget of around $4 million per episode. The show was created by Kelly Marcel and Craig Silver.
I have still only ever seen the James Cameron Avatar movie one time.
Filming for the 2-hour pilot episode began in late November of 2010 and took over 26 days to shoot. Once the footage was shot, it would then sit in post-production for a longer period of time due to the immense amount of special effects needed.
It's always so weird when, like, because, like, we live in this age of, like, super prestige TV, right? And I always forget that, like, there's Fox and, like, NBC and stuff like that have to make, like, shows that are, like, 24 episodes a season still, and they have to have, like, budgets of, like, $6 an episode. And that they still try to sometimes do, like, sci-fi shows. And it's, like, the structure and everything about, like, how they're written and designed, it's, like, it feels like it's from another era, but it's not. Just because, like, I haven't watched a show on, like, besides, like, the Orville, I don't think I've watched, like, a show on, like, regular-ass TV in a very long time.
Internal production problems began as following the filming of the pilot, the majority of the writing team was laid off and replaced. Following this, the production of episodes 3 to 13 began shooting. By early 2011, promos began to be run on Fox, showing their new upcoming sci-fi action thriller, premiering in May. However, due to the elongated post-production of the pilots, the show was pushed back to a September premiere with a weekly release every Monday night on Fox. As the network continued to push and hype the new upcoming show, people were really getting excited for
Man, dude, like, every time they try to really hype something and it does poorly, it's like, you're just looking at pictures of hubris.
the show, including myself. And on September 26, 2011, the pilot episode for the series premiered to an audience of over 9.2 million people. The public...
Someone's, let's see... Firing all the writers, huh? That doesn't sound good. Yeah, show's not in a really good spot if it's firing all the writers. What's my take on American gun laws? America has a gun culture and also has, like, hundreds of millions of guns in the country. So, like, there's no possible way that there's going to be any real program of, like, any of, like, the liberal dreams of, like, get rid of all the guns. Definitely would love it if we had more things to make sure that, like, you know, there was a registration and registry and, like, you know, if a gun was found, you'd be able to at least have some sort of paper trail to find who these things belong to. That would be great, but that doesn't exist, which is terrifying. And, you know, the mandatory minimum waiting or mandatory waiting time, and that would be good. But yeah, like, I'm not like a what's his name? Who the hell is that Texas politician who was famous for losing to Ted Cruz that really hated guns? Either way. Some states do have a registry, like Massachusetts, but nothing national. Yeah.
critical reception for the show was kinda mixed. Matthew Gilbert of the Boston Globe, I think, summed it up by saying, Spielberg 101, mainstream, iconic, inoffensively predictable. Overall, I think the pilot did its job on catching the interest of many.
I did watch this, the first episode of this, and I remember things like, because of the fences and like the way the pavilions were shaped, it looked like the zoo, and I'm wondering if this was like filmed in a zoo somewhere so that they didn't have to set up sets or something. Yeah, I think I watched the pilot of this and was like, you know what? I think I'm good. I don't think I need to watch this TV show. I think I have seen all I need to see and do not need any more of it. Maybe I watched some more episodes, so I can't really remember. Yeah, Beto O'Rourke is what I was talking about. Well, I was trying to be like, how do you make a I bet this Steven Spielberg is attached, so somehow I think that this probably started as a Jurassic Park TV show, and they probably couldn't get the rights, so they had to think of something else. But, like, I'll bet you the fuck that this began production as a Jurassic Park TV show attempt.
As the following episode brought back nearly 95% of the audience the pilot earned, with an audience of around 8.7 million people. As the show continued to air, ratings did slump as low as 6 million people, and the season wrapped up by December 19th with a pretty spectacular season finale. And then there was silence. The show's termination was...
Yeah, Beto O'Rourke's gun policy is awful and is almost designed... It feels like, anyway, it was designed to make the pro-gun people basically start a civil war. So, like, yeah, no thanks.
Insights. So why...
It's like Beto O'Rourke listened to It Could Happen Here and then saw the kind of gun legislation that was talked about that could make all of the gun nuts start a civil war and was like, you know what? I'm gonna do that.
Was Terra Nova canceled after only one season? Well, there were a few reasons that really just all came together, which ultimately brought it down. The first and probably most compelling...
My bet is if the entire writers team got fired, that there was either like massive budget cuts or it ran way over budget, or something like there's just this doesn't feel like something that had a ton of drama behind the scenes, but it felt like something that like nobody particularly cared about.
For the network to drop the series was just the sheer cost the show took to produce.
Yeah, there you go.
Production troubles began while shooting in Australia with constant setbacks and long days of filming. even though it was pretty clear that these would amount to...
Gosh, you have to be like, what's it called? You have to be so confident in a project if you're going to try and make a TV, like a regular cable, like a, what's it called? Standard cable, like TV show that is also science fiction. Because, like, you're going to have to be so budget conscious, and if, like, anything goes wrong, the show's done. And if it doesn't do amazing, it's not even going to get 2 seasons.
Dollars lost. Producers to the show claim that the show was still on budget. However, the pilot itself claimed to cost Fox around $10 to $20 million to make. An average episode was to be priced at around $4 million an episode, which is really, really high. The ratings the show brought in were good, however the series didn't bring in the audience and wide fan base comparable to Lost's, like the show's producers were hoping it would. Fox also has a bit of a history of being very trigger happy with canceling shows, and their new flagship show that the network was hoping on...
Okay, come on. I know that, like, that's, like, one... I know that he's talking about Firefly when he's saying that, but, like... Come on, bud. You know that, like, if you're Seth MacFarlane or Matt Groening, you can be on Fox for, like, 1,000 years and you'll never get canceled.
Didn't exactly pan out the way they wanted to. So, as the season finale aired on December 19, 2011, Fox announced that a season renewal would be up in the air, and that any announcements of a second season wouldn't come until 2012. As the new year rolled into February, and with no announcements, things were not looking good for the show. And inevitably,
Fox cancels
March
a huge number of
6,
things, that is true.
2012, Fox announced...
I would feel so mad though if there was a Fox show that was like really my baby, and they canceled it after 1 season, and I'll be like, oh, you can fund season 20,000 of The Simpsons, but you can't fund my show, huh?
That Terra Nova had been officially canceled. Kevin Riley, the president of entertainment at Fox, said in a statement that Terra Nova was considered to be a success for everyone involved, and with all parties making profit on the show. Despite this...
I know exactly why. I know that, like, the show just doesn't have the merchandising potential. I mean, this show could have. You probably could have sold toys or something. I feel like this was a show where, like, they got really excited because they thought it was going to be a Jurassic Park TV show, and then they lost the right to use Jurassic Park, and then they, like, frantically still tried to turn it into a blockbuster, and it just, like, they convinced themselves that they made something just as cool, if not cooler, but it never congealed.
It just seems as though the network had decided that a season 2 would just be too risky of a decision for the company. And with the cancellation news, there was a massive saddening reaction from the fan base, and even the cast and crew publicly displayed themselves as disappointed and anxious to push for another season. Soon after, it was publicly made that the producers were on board with Fox putting the show up for sale for other networks to continue the series. However, because the show is just so expensive to produce, and the audience numbers would probably be skewed due to a possible network shift, the idea of another company swooping in and taking over production...
I bet they're going to make a Terra Nova, like, reboot show in, like, a decade. Like, 2030... I guess this show's it's already got canceled like a decade ago. I could imagine, like, you know how, like, they're taking shows, like, they took shows like Battlestar Galactica and, like, you know, these, like, shows that people would recognize. Like, once we, like, tap through all the really good ones, the shows that people are just like, oh, Terra Nova, I remember that show existing, I never saw it. And then they'll make, like, you know, a prestige TV reboot of it or something. Would copyright even exist in a moneyless society? Some say yes, some say no. I tend towards no. I think that copyright hurts more than it helps. But there are some people who are, like, legit anarchists who still think that, like, copyright should be a thing.
Production, especially at that budget, were kind of slim. However, Netflix began to show interest in taking over the series and producing a second season.
Oh, you want someone who's cancel happy.
To keep production costs down, the set would be moved to Hawaii and shoot...
Is swastika really an ancient symbol? Yeah, it's, what's it called? It's, from, like, it's like ancient Sanskrit or something.
Domestically in the United States, instead of shooting in Australia. Rumors swirled around the Sci-Fi Network possibly taking over. However, Netflix seemed to be the only solid company who would be willing to put in the money to continue the show. By late March of 2012, Netflix had decided to turn down the possible season 2 of Terra Nova, and quietly the cast and crew of the show began acquiring other jobs. At this point, the hope for Terra Nova to return was mostly now over. It was clear now that the show will just never see a season 2. However, Fox did release the entire season on DVD, along with a special motion comic that kind of continued the story.
Someone's saying that like the Nazis took it from the Hindus. Like, it was supposed to be a symbol of like Dharma and Samsara and stuff like that, but like the Nazis had this like fake archaeology story that had to do with the Battle of Troy, and so they tried to associate it with all of that. It's just like a entirely about moral rights rather than actual copy and commercial value. Yeah, I think the idea of like removing something from its creator's name is sort of could be the crime.
In September of 2012. Since the show left on a bit of a cliffhanger, the motion comic was created to give fans some closure. However, by 2013, Fox had...
Because like I could see even in a moment, even in like a a time where you don't have to worry about like being able to pay rent if you're an artist, you're an artist, and if your work like was just like copied, like if they just like somebody was just like printing your book at home and giving it to friends, that wouldn't hurt you at all. But like but I could still see like you feeling like people taking credit for your work and stuff like that could still be not so good.
Stopped selling their DVD on their store, and the DVD with motion comic is relatively hard to find now. So what about the set itself? Well, the show set up its main production set in Queensland, Australia. Interior scenes that didn't need to be outdoors were filmed on sound stages in the same city. The main set structures sat vacant and abandoned up until May of 2012. By September...
Man, there's so many, like, random sets. Just, like... It's just around, just in case the show comes back.
September of the same year, the majority of the set had been demolished. However, some utility buildings sat on the land all the way up until 2014. As of late 2016, though, all that remains is the existing roads on the set, some small utility structures, and the concrete center base just in front of the main gate. Terra Nova absolutely could have been a feature-length motion picture, and what the producers brought to the table was pretty good. The network just didn't feel confident enough to produce a second season, and towards the end of the first, the producers had laid out the outlines of what they wanted to do for the second. The idea was that a new threat would face the colony from a highly intelligent dinosaur, and most of the criticism from the audience from the first season said that the dinosaurs didn't play a big enough role, so having them essentially as the main antagonist would have been exactly what many wanted. Terra Nova was just a show that had a short-lived run, and whether you loved it or hated it, there's no denying its ambition and sheer size. Whether it was successful...
I remember from around this same time there was another show where like oh god, I can't remember what the name of it was anymore. But like what they were trying to do, and it was very ambitious, is that Tryon, the people who make the MMORPG Rift, were going to make an MMO shooter, and it was going to launch, I think it was called Defiance or something like that, and it was going to simultaneously, the video game, launch with a TV show, like a sci-fi show, I think it was sci-fi, called by the same name, and it was going to have it so that like updates to the game and like seasons of the TV show would like be happening constantly, so it felt like the TV show was interacting with the game, and like the game was going to affect the TV show or something, but like the game like took too long and the show came out before it did, and then the game like flopped really hard and nobody played it, and then the TV show got canceled after 2 seasons, and it was just like absolutely like really ambitious, really clever idea if you can pull it off, but it just like crashed right into a wall the second it came, the rubber hit the road on it.
Well, at doing so, I'll leave up to you. Thanks for watching the pilot episode of
That was a pretty good wrap up though. I can understand. I think the underground house is still there in Tunisia. Yeah, I think what's it called? I'm pretty sure the Tunisia set for Star Wars is now kept around as a tourist attraction. So I would that's my guess. Could probably go see it if you ever go to Tunisia. I'm gonna take a quick washroom break. So I'm just gonna put on some music for you folks, and I'll be back momentarily. I'll also get more water while I'm up. So yeah. Alrighty, friends, I am back. Thank you for being so patient with me. We're at the midpoint of the stream. I thought it would be fine. How are we doing in the chat? We're talking about copyright. Yeah, one of the examples that I think comes up, and now I know that I'm the person who listens to pop music like a dum-dum, but an example of how copyright, even without the what's it called, the needs of money and capital, can have a big impact. Is Jason Derulo released a song this summer called "Savage Love." And what happened is that because he was he used this sort of melody from another DJ, a kind of lesser known DJ, and kind of as part of the whole remix culture, he was he tried to be I transformed it, and he totally did. He made an entire song with the sound, so there's something very transformative about it, but he relied really heavily on this really catchy melody made by this indie artist who didn't have a huge platform, was just sort of internet viral type thing on TikTok and stuff. And eventually I think he was able to sue for credit on the song. But still it was an example of a more famous creative taking something really, really good by a little guy who's they're only shot at big time, and they did that. They're shot at the big time, and then put it in something so that now this melody is going to be more associated with Jason Derulo than this guy, for example. That's like sort of one of the things that kind of came up. Okay, so that was a pretty fun video, wasn't it? Let's do our next video. Okay.
The history of the British Isles is an uneven...
Okay, so this is Overly Sarcastic Productions. History Summarized, Wales. I think this is because I said on Twitter that I didn't know anything about the Welsh independence movement, so somebody sent me a video about the history of Wales, so I would learn my lesson. So, it's good. I don't know anything about Wales. Everybody in this stream knows that I'm, like, terrible at European history, so let's see where this goes. But I'm curious. I'm excited. I don't think to watch Overly Sarcastic Productions all that often, so I'm happy to see something.
Fair, to put it mildly. We're familiar with how Scotland and Ireland drew the imperial short stick and enjoyed the pleasure of being sat upon by England, but perhaps the shortest stick of the bunch was drawn by Wales, who is often left out of the discussion entirely. And while I'm shocked that anybody could gloss over the country that is a freaking dragon flag, Wales has been
Wales is in Poland, right? Correct. Because everything is Poland. That's the trick. What's it called? The thing is that everything is Poland. Every flag is Poland. Poland, everything is... I don't know what this joke is.
Tragically sidelined from the historical narrative of the Isles, and I will not stand for it. Wales has impressively and improbably maintained a distinct Celtic culture since the very start, and it is far too cool for historians to be doing them dirty like that. So, to see how Wales did the hard carry for Great Britain's culture for 2,000 straight years, let's do some history. A proper understanding of this whole Wales business requires...
I'm so excited to hear Blue try to pronounce Welsh words. That's like my favorite part I'm looking forward to in this video.
Us to go way
back
in British history.
That was probably Welsh racist, and I'm sorry. I don't... I do know that I have a very distant relative who is Welsh, so I'm okay. What's my European ethnicity? I am various flavors of white people. I have one family line that kind of came through like Newfoundland, and they came to Newfoundland from like Scotland. I got one branch of my family that came from France to Quebec in like the 1600s and just stayed there for like centuries, and sort of moved out the west in the last like, what's it called, the last 100 years or so. So it's like a bunch of like French Canadians who are from like BC and Alberta and stuff like that. Various flavors of mayonnaise. Yeah, we got Cranch, we got Mayo Chup, we got I'm all of those. But then also, my great-grandmother and great-grandfather are, they're dead now. We're immigrants from, like, from Prussia. Or my great-grandmother was from Prussia. She moved over around, like, the 1900s. Or from like, Germany. It's sort of like the Germany-ish, Polish-y area that people don't really know. This is a mix. And then, the Newfoundlanders were from Scotland, I think I forgot to mention. And Wales. And then, like, I had my great-grandfather immigrated to Canada after fighting in World War I. And then he came to Canada, but he was from Switzerland. And I think he fought in the German army in World War I. And after the war, like, renounced... Like, he declared himself a pacifist and left all of his war memorabilia in Switzerland and moved to Canada and, like, refused to talk about his experiences and stuff. He's pretty cool. He seems like he was a really nice guy. I never got to meet him personally. He died before I was born, but, you know, I have a lot of respect for the sort of person he was in that case. And then when he came here, he started building homes for the Inuit and stuff, so... All right.
No, too far. Yeah, there we go. See, Celtic culture in Britain is the foundation of what will eventually become Wales, but these guys aren't the easiest to get a handle on. The Celtic, or Gallic people, stretched out from Central Europe towards Gaul, Iberia, and the British Isles, but also went southeast towards the Black Sea, and when...
Switzerland fought for Germany in both wars. See, the thing is, we don't actually... This is a kind of a mystery that nobody's able to answer, and I've asked a lot of people who know more than me. But basically... one of my friends, according to my great-grandfather's story, because he didn't talk too much about his time in the war, according to him, he was conscripted. Like, Switzerland has, like, a staunch neutrality thing, so it didn't, like, officially get fought, like, didn't officially get, like, part of the thing. But there was, Italy and Germany did have an entire war front in the Alps. And so I think that might have, like, bled over into Switzerland. And but my great-grandfather claims that he was conscripted into the German army during World War I, but he lived in Switzerland, which makes me think that, you know, borders were a little less hard than they were back in the day, and that he might have just been, like, picked up by, like, some recruitment agent from the German army who just, like, swooped down through some, like, German-speaking Swiss cities and, like... try to get some people. I'm really sorry about your friend, Ludlow. That sucks. This whole COVID comeback is, like, really, really scary right now. I'm, like, terrified to go outside.
Problem for us loser historians is that it's unclear how and even kinda if they settled in Britain. There are competing theories for who, when, where, and why, ranging from the standard migration models to the possibility that very few Celts actually settled in Britain. Logic being that overseas trade was key to the Bronze Age economy, and Britain's tin deposits made them a big export hub. Since tin is half the chemical structure for bronze, that meant people from all over Europe and the Mediterranean came to the Atlantic coasts to get their bronze on, and this includes our Celt boys. So it wasn't mass migration that brought Celtic people to Britain, but rather local Britons who buddied up with Celtic traders by speaking their language and copying their swirly Latin art. So according to this meme model, the local Britons thought Celtic culture was LOL so relatable XD that they adopted it all up and down the aisles. Whether or not this model is fully accurate, it would account for some weird archaeological and linguistic discrepancies in the traditional migration theory. And it also foreshadows the prestige placed on bards and literary...
I don't know why this happens, but, like, okay. Overly sarcastic productions videos are always really good. Like, I really like them. And yet, I just never think, like, man, could really go for an overly sarcastic productions video right now. Like, it's sort of like, for me, it was like that with Better Call Saul, where I was like, every time I was watching Better Call Saul, I was like, this show is great. And then every time I was thinking about, like, watching, like, about, like, should I watch Better Call Saul tonight? I'd be like, yeah, you know? Maybe I'm the only person who this might go through. But someone said that Switzerland was just mountain Germany. That's a bit more, what's it called? It's a bit of a mix. There are a lot of German-speaking people who live in Switzerland, but it also is heavily, like, Italian and French, and there's a culture indicative to itself, which is a language called Romunsch, and most Italians can speak, like, 3 to 5 languages, so, yeah. Most Swiss are Swiss. Okay, yeah, fair. I was just sort of going off of the languages being spoken. I always thought it was surreal that there were Celts in Iberia 2,200 years ago because, like, modern Celt descendants are super pale. Yeah, weren't the... I don't know too much about this, but wasn't, like, weren't the Celts who lived in Iberia called, like, the Visigoths or something like that? Like, there's, like, the Goths and the Visigoths and... Or am I completely off, or is that just, like, some other word that I don't know? I should just, like, put, like, a thing. Like, people sometimes think I'm smart. Big mistake, by the way. And so don't know that I don't know, like, when it comes to European history, I, like, am vaguely aware that Europe was there. So, like, please, like, I'm asking you guys and then hoping that you guys are giving me the straight answer. And I'm glad that nobody has thought to troll me yet. They were Germanic tribes who showed up much later? Okay. Celt-Iberians. Gosh. What was the... I'm curious what the... like, Celtic Iberian language would be. I'd be very interested in hearing what that would be like, because now Spanish and Portuguese and French, well, less so French, but like Spanish and Portuguese are so a sort of mix of like Latin and like a bunch of local dialects and a sprinkle of Arabic, and now it's like that's what Spanish is basically. And I'm just like, I wonder if there's like Celtic words still in there, because when you think of like Celtic influence on language, you typically think of like German and English and a little bit of French, but yeah.
Prowess by later Celtic cultures, because it's equal parts cool as all hell and existentially horrifying that a culture can, basically by itself, take hold of an entire population by willing itself into existence. This would be our first indication that Wales has big eldritch energy.
Someone saying that it's a language isolated. Yeah, Basque might be like one of those things. Like the thing is, Catalonian as well. The thing about how it worked, what happened in Spain is that Spain used to have multiple languages. Like what is today Spain used to be like the kingdoms of Castile, Aragon, and like Galicia, and there's some other ones. But and also the Emirate of Al-Andalus. And then after like the Reconquista and the sort of unification of Christian Spain, they all sort of blended together. And what became Spanish is primarily based off of Castilian, because Castile was the kingdom that like took over the peninsula. But like big mix of different languages from all over the peninsula that have meshed together, to the point where there's like even like Spanish has several words that are borrowed from Arabic. Like it's an interesting mix. And what is today Spanish is sort of like primarily Castilian with like flavors from other languages in that region.
Civilizations, however, would not follow this lead, because the Romans found that culture was best delivered by spearpoint. While on their way to fill out their pan-imperial punch card and get their 10th new province free, Roman emperors in the mid-1st century...
France has a few regional languages like Occitan and Breton. Yeah, there's I'm trying to remember, I think this was a history class that I was in, so it was a while back, so take this with like, a degree of salt. But in 1800, a good chunk of countries in Europe that we would consider today did not speak the language. Like, for example, like I think that there was like a census of France, for example, in 1800 that showed that less than 50% of people in France spoke French, and that like there was a whole bunch of like small like local dialects and languages that sort of like was like this like patchwork across Europe, that when states started to like coalesce and make like nation building projects, they started to like formalize the government and like formalize the borders and that kind of thing, that they started like a sort of cultural linguistic takeover of the country, and so like all of these like regional languages in France got stamped out so that everyone would start speaking French.
Campaigned into Britain. Most Roman settlements were in the south and east,
to the point where today, actually, unlike English, French and German both have like actual academies that decide what the rules of the language are going to be.
where all the easy agriculture was, and although goods, coins, and Roman legions did make their way west, the cultural and linguistic impact on so-called Britannia Secunda was only slight. Perhaps the most transformative thing the Romans did in Wales was leave, because the post-Roman migrations from Central Europe into Britain totally upended the island's demographics. Frustratingly, it's nigh impossible to show this kind of thing clearly on a map, which is why turbulent centuries in history with slim documentation make blue a sad boy, but here's the gist. We know the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes from northern Europe arrived and displaced many of the Romano Britons.
Spain has there's an Academia España or something like that. What's funny is that, like, for example, French has, like, there is a proper way to do French all the way through. And I will tell you that no human being speaks French properly. French has, like, an extraordinarily complicated grammar structure when it comes to verb conjugation that, like, nobody ever learns. No, like, French speaker. I mean, very few French, like you have to learn it when you're doing, like, a proper essay for class, but, like, you don't speak with the 19 verb tenses because you have to, like, look it up and stuff like that, which turns French into a language that's actually, like, shockingly easy to learn how to write and not learn how to read, and learn how to read but not learn how to speak, and vice versa.
There was
exactly.
also an influx of Irish Celts coming in to settle. This age of migrations was much more overtly migratory than the Celtic arrival in Britain in the millennium before, though, again, the native Britons didn't really leave.
Standard French is the Parisian variant, I think. Yeah. For example, like French is not the only like France isn't the only country that speaks French in Europe. Like, it's spoken in Belgium and it's spoken in parts of Switzerland. And, like, one example is that in the Académie Française, which is the name of the organization that does French, in the Académie there's like a thing with like numbers. So, like, anyone who doesn't know, French numbers are fucking weird, because it goes like 10, 10, 20. For the love of God, play the video. Oh, quiet, my stream. But, like, when you get into, like, 60 and 70, like, 70 is, like, 70, which is, like, 60-10, and, like, 80 is, like, 4-20 or something like that. So, in, like, Switzerland and, like, Belgium and stuff like that, you can get, like, septante and octante, neufante, etc., etc.
After a few decades of raiding gave way to much more peaceable settlement, most Britons were happy to start speaking Germanic and make friends with their new Saxon neighbors than to up and book it for the hills. Still,
420, you say, yes.
The confinement of native Celtic culture to the far west in Wales and
80.
Cornwall, and that split explains why it's called Wales. It comes from the Germanic word wala, meaning foreigner, while the Welsh call it cymru, from the Celtic word for countryman. It's also in this migratory shuffle that the legend of the Romano...
Yeah, so, like, the French word for 97 would be 97, which would be 4-20-10-7, or 4-20-17.
British King Arthur first pops up, though it'll be a couple centuries before he's labeled as Arthur or a king. Honestly, the whole early medieval period in Wales has this pseudo-mythic Age of Heroes vibe to it. Good documentation is blah, what else is new, but the oral traditions that will later become the core of Welsh epic literature get their start in this era. So, as far as we can tell, what was going on in medieval Wales? Well, isolation from Germanic-majority England was good for preserving a unified Celtic culture, but the politics were...
I gotta say, like, we can't let Wales go without just being like, dude, dragon flag. There's 2 countries with dragon flags, and they are both badass as hell.
Much more wibbly. Various local princes vied for hegemony over the many disparate realms, but succession always proved their undoing, as sons would squabble and big kingdoms would shrink back to where they started. The princes of Gwynedd and Powys were the most successful of the bunch, and as a result, King Offa of Mercia built a dike across his border in the late 700s to try and keep Powys out. But that worked about as well as any frontier walls have worked throughout history, which is to say...
Yeah, as somebody pointed out, the French names for numbers obviously came from a time before Arabic numerals came to France. Correct! And French doesn't like to update its language to be modern and usable, so because the Académie Française, as opposed to the German Academy, apparently, is much more focused on making sure that things don't change and that things sound pretty, rather than being, like, you know, up-to-date, effective language.
Barely. So despite the best attempts of Saxon kings and the Irish Sea, Wales wasn't entirely cut off from the rest of the world, as they had gotten on board with Christianity thanks to the missionary Saint David back in the 6th century. They might not have been the most consistent of pen pals with the Pope in Rome, but they were mostly on the same page. Wales' early medieval history of relative chill was aided by England's near constant...
Bhutan is an awesome flag, because not only does it have a dragon on it, but they also, like, everyone was like, alright, we're doing flags, everybody gets a rectangle, and they went, fuck you, and made a triangle flag.
Viking tire fire, which pushed Conquer Wales way down the to-do list. But that changed when our old pals the Normans kite-shielded their way to conquering England. Because suddenly, this new Norman England had a much stronger army, and they proceeded to point it right at Wales. Norman lords pushed into Wales along the northern and southern coasts and made some, but not a lot of progress. Since Wales was made of small principalities, the Normans could...
This is after the point when I start playing. I always do a Wales playthrough in CK3, and this is usually where things happen.
Play the Welsh off each other, but then all of their gains were only incremental. Not so easy as winning Hastings and calling it a day. While casual war was the standard for the next 200 years along the borderland marches, elements of Anglo-Norman and Welsh culture made their way across. The princes of Gwynedd, Powys, and Deheubarth picked up some Norman political structures, and England learned about Welsh longbows the hard way.
Is Nepal the one with the
Wales
triangle
didn't fall
flag?
into a
Goddamn.
unified nation, they did get close a couple times. Llewellyn Var fought off his family members to become
I got my
Prince of
two
Gwynedd
favorite
and
things
proceeded to
about.
bap-
Got my two favorite things about those. What's it called? About the those two countries. They're close to each other. I got my favorite things about their flags mixed up. Nepal has a double triangle flag.
all of his enemies out of the way so that he could assert his hegemony over Wales. He also
both
tried
Himalayan
to streamline
countries.
the rules for royal succession so that every interregnum didn't immediately explode into a civil war. He then pushed eastward into the March and defeated King John of England so handily that his barons made him sign the Magna Carta to stop being such a royal knob. Llewellyn's military successes weren't quite matched by his
Llewellyn.
grandson.
Here we go. This is Llewellyn. He's getting into it. What's it called? This is the king that what's it called in that episode of The Crown, where King Charles got fucking owned because he was at like a university dinner with a bunch of Welsh people that he was supposed to be the prince of, and he did not know who this person was.
Also, Llewellyn. Though he did the biggest Prince in Wales routine again, he was defeated by England's King Edward Longshanks. The next year, in 1283, Edward pushed into Wales and stomped out the
Spherical
princes, using
flag.
the old Norman trick of building a buttload of castles in newly conquered territory to stop the locals from getting ideas. In a twist that should surprise no one, England needed more than a few of these to do the trick, so Wales has the highest castle density of any country in Europe, with over 600 built and 100 still standing today. That is,
castles.
and I really cannot stress this enough, a stupid amount of castles. That's the density equivalent of 23 castles in New York City, with a less impressive but still formidable 2 castles just in Manhattan. Good lord!
Yeah, my flag is shaped like a what's it called? It's an interpretive dance rather than like a picture.
In any case, the post-conquest period was a
Or it is also the sound of a slide whistle.
weird century for Wales. Suddenly they were subordinate to England, but soon they got tied up in the 100 Years' War, and then everybody had plague to contend with. So while it was a real wacky time, it was also surprisingly indicative of the history still to come, as England goes about its business while holding a pillow over Wales' face, gently shushing them and hoping nobody notices. Forgive me for speedrunning through the next several centuries, but I've already done the England plotline once, and that was painful enough. A century after a thwarted independence uprising in 1400, Wales had the good fortune to pull a reverso and put a Welshman on the English throne. The man in question was one Henry VII, notable ender of the War of the Roses, and he set up Wales for greater integration with England and way more rights than they had before. This all became official via the Laws in Wales Acts passed by Henry VIII in the mid-1500s. He drew up county borders, standardized laws, gave Welshmen equal status as Englishmen, and gave Wales representation in Parliament. And as an added
Wait a minute. Okay, so the way that this map is being told, can somebody who knows about England or like the UK tell me something that I need to know? Sometimes people define Cornwall as being part of Wales, and sometimes they don't. What's the deal with Cornwall here?
bonus of Henry's hop over to Protestantism, the church translated the Bible into Welsh. This protection of the Welsh language coincided with a new interest in medieval culture and ancient literature, and language became a defining feature of the Welsh identity. While all of this was going on, the political story of Wales got...
Oh yes, we do know that
Cornwall.
Cornwall is Cornish, but Cornwall is F is Celtic but not Welsh. Okay.
Narrative. What with the Spanish Armada-ing, the union of the crowns of England and Scotland-ing, and the creation of a globe-spanning empire-ing. Despite playing second
So Cornwall's
fiddle,
just its own people.
maybe closer to fourth, in the history of the British Empire, Welsh literature was rising in prominence during the Romantic movement, thanks in part to some shiny new...
All right, I decided that my pointless thing that I'm going to care about is Cornish independence. I think we need Corksit. where Cornwall needs to leave the United Kingdom and become an independent peninsula once again.
Editions of classic works. Specifically, Lady Charlotte Guest compiled and published the 4 branches of the Mabinogi, and doubly translated too, so Welsh and English readers could both enjoy the medieval folklore. In contrast to Scots Gaelic going kaput and Irish Gaelic suffering a steep decline in the 1800s that they're only recently bouncing back from, Welsh literature and poetry came in clutch for the long-term endurance of the language. But while the Romantic era was in full swing, so too was the Industrial Revolution. So all these fancy new machines and choo-choo trains needed coal.
Oh, this is the part where they find out that Wales has shit tons of coal in it.
If they wanted to do anything, and Wales happens to have a crap
Cornish IRA.
Southern Wales swiftly became the mining capital of the empire, and while coal and slate may have been big business, they were also hellish jobs to work. So Wales ended the century more urbanized than it had ever been, but the Welsh probably weren't so thrilled about why.
CRA.
Especially as
It's funny because in Canada, CRA is like our version of the IRS.
British attitudes towards them soured, and Wales got the dingy reputation shared by all other regions doing heavy industry. Although the 1900s started out pretty rough, what with the coal mining and a nasty spell of discrimination against the Welsh language in schools and work, Wales turned a corner after the Second World War. Industry diversified, and politicians campaigned for more regional autonomy and protections for the language. The Welsh Language Acts of 1967 and 93 elevated Welsh to on par with English, granting bilingual signage, the right to use Welsh in legal proceedings, and Welsh language broadcasting. So now a third of Wales can speak the native language. And in 1999, Wales, and also Scotland, but that's a different story, got its own National Assembly, later promoted to Parliament. And that's Wales.
Yeah, okay, I know that like there's some talk that in our Brexit hell that Wales is getting closer to having like real grown-up independence movement that like could have a referendum just like Scotland. Is that moving forward in a big way? I don't remember. I don't know where it's at. I haven't been following British politics because America sucked up all the oxygen out of the room for the last year.
Far too often sidelined in the history of the Isles, Wales has an enchanting historical vibe the other 3 countries lack. Maybe it's the ancient Celtic language and the dragon flag getting to me, but Wales feels older, like you can wander slightly too far off a hiking trail and stumble into Narnia. As anybody who knows Welsh can confirm, it just sounds like the language dragons would speak, and I know better than to disrespect the Dragon Lords. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more overly sarcastic...
Wales voted for Brexit? Oh, I didn't know that. See, the thing is, like, so much of, like, my family is supposed to be from, like, Scotland and Wales. I don't know anything about these regions. Okay. But that was really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. I, always happy to see a Overly Sarcastic Productions vid. All right, next up, what do we got? Christmas dinner in a can from Ashens. Who's ready for this? Kelly would love this. Kelly watches like people open 600-year-old military rations and eat them. So I bet that's what this is going to be like. So let's find out what Christmas dinner in a can looks like, friends. Let's see how cursed this dinner is going to be.
Hello, ho, ho. And this week on I Can't Believe It Exists, hot can Christmas dinner. No microwave, no kettle, just...
Oh my god, this is going to be so cursed. I can already tell. This is going to... Like, what's it called? Content warning, everybody. There's going to be multiple food crimes shown on this.
Hot can, ready to eat in 8 to 12 minutes, and apparently there's a sprout in it. Christmas dinner, self-heating meal. Almost certainly tastes of failure and tears. This is something I've been repeatedly asked to review, and I did manage to get hold.
First target, Atomic Shrimps were weird stuff in can series. It's really great. But his plus channel's dope as fuck. Yeah, probably.
Of one, and it really is almost unbelievable. It's apparently marketed to people who think using a microwave or a kettle in order to get food is hassle. I mean, Listen, microwaves can be difficult. Have you tried to pop popcorn and have every popcorn bag say you can't use the button that says popcorn on the microwave? I'm just saying. Hardly Jamie Oliver, but come on, people. Have some self-respect. Self-heating Christmas dinner. All the elements of a traditional Christmas dinner in a can. Pieces of succulent turkey, chipolatas, roast potatoes, carrots and chestnuts combined in a rich gravy.
Oh god, I hate it. I hate it so much.
Sprouts not included. Hang on! That makes no sense. The only piece of food you've got on the front of this is a sprout. And it doesn't have sprouts in it.
Theoretically, it has
No
food.
comment. Right, how does a hot can work? It'll be a chemical reaction, we know. There's 400 grams of this.
It's a pizza. What's it called? What's it called? It's almost pizza. Almost? It's almost, but not entirely unlike pizza. But it just looks like pizza. Yes, but for several legal reasons, we cannot call it that.
Joy. Ingredients: vegetables, water, turkey.
Sprouts are
chipolatas,
great.
sausages,
I love
chestnuts,
Brussels sprouts. It's one of my favorite vegetables.
Savory stock, including rehydrated potato water.
I don't know if chicken
blah,
in a
blah,
can
blah.
is something I can possibly
Hot
eat.
can, blah blah blah. Directions for use. Oh my god, it's got a QR code. You'll see
A bechamel with hot dog water in
By the
it?
way, it's very spongy, so it's obviously got some sort of insulation around there to stop the heat.
Wait, okay, someone made a bechamel with hot dog water. Oh, that is grotesque. It's like the hot ham water from freaking Arrested Development. You had shawarma out of a can? Oh my god. How? There's no... I can't even imagine, contains quote-unquote food.
Heat escaping. Remove plastic cap and push on.
Whenever somebody says that capitalism breeds innovation, show them the video of Christmas dinner in a can.
Onto the bottom of the can. Oh bloody hell. And you have to eat it with an Allen key. Okay, we can do that. There we are, done that. 2. Push spike provided.
Push the...
Oh, don't we get a fork?
The spike that shows up with your dinner. Because, a convenient canned dinner that comes with a fucking spike.
Oh, come on. We're supposed to be lazy, aren't we? Push spike provided into the 3 holes in top rim of can. Push the spike to the maximum depth each time. Right. Time for some pierce.
I'm down for canned meat. I am... I personally like the taste of Spam. And so every once in a while, I will get Spam, because Spam is good. Kelly hates Spam. But, also, I'm not going to fault anybody because of, money reasons, eating things like canned chicken and stuff like that. Sometimes you need that shit for, for dips and stuff. And, what's it called? But, the idea of, an entire chicken, chicken thighs in a can just seems, really, really weird. Spam is good, and it is awesome fried.
Maximum depth, I believe. Oh, no, it's difficult to get out again.
Spam is for some reason expensive. It can be, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Already this is more effort than boiling a kettle. Come on.
I do love when I have to spike my cans so that it will heat my food for me. This is it must be designed to eat when you're going on an Arctic expedition at Christmas time, right? That's the only reason you justify having to spike some cans.
I suppose it's handy if you're in the middle of the Antarctic or something. I'll cut this one quite all the way down. There we are, got it. Up it comes, and my thumb's gone numb. Brilliant. Oh, it spat at me. Right. Lift the ring pull to the vertical position before pulling back to open the food container. So I'm aware of how to use a ring pull. Right, that's it apparently. Then, after about 3 minutes, steam will...
Yes. Warning, contains a canned Christmas dinner. Proceed with caution. Shouldn't he be tossing it at Jerry now? Yeah, he throw the Christmas dinner at the Germans and threw... What's it called? It's a biological weapon, even more dangerous. Is British food? What's it called? Every time, when I think of that Christmas story about how they traded food and stuff like that, and I was just oh no, the Germans traded their sausage for the British Billy beef, and I was those poor souls, they got such a bad deal.
Briefly come out of the 3 holes in the top of the can. Take care, as the steam is hot. Better get this done then.
Something good to give to a homeless person? Sure.
Ugh.
Although, you have to have somewhere to keep it.
Yep. Looking a bit like jellified dog food at the second, so I'm not exactly going to hold out much hope for this being a fantastic...
That already looked like a food crime. I'm already going to call the food version of the International Criminal Court here.
Christmas meal, but hey, One never knows. Using a spoon, stir the food occasionally while it's heating up. The food will be ready to eat in 8 to 12 minutes. Right. Well, I suppose we'd better fade out and then come back in 8 to 12 minutes.
And SA, I know that you watch everybody's YouTube videos. Look at this. Look what's happening. Look what's happening in this can. This has to be a crime. This is why the American Revolution happened. There has to be something in the Patriot Act that forbids this.
And suddenly. Wow, man, we've got steam.
Ooh. Shit really works.
Look at that. And only 2 minutes in as well.
Like, I thought it was going to, just warm stuff up, but it's steaming. Like, that's intense. Send it to the food egg.
Stir it. Something smells good. No, it genuinely does smell really nice, actually. It's been cooking for 10.5 minutes or so. Let's just see if it is hot enough. I should stick some gravy in the gob. It looks quite steaming. So, not on the sofa.
Yeah, why is he filming us on a sofa with
that's
food?
warm enough.
That was a bad call.
Right. Okay. Let's see what Christmas dinner is like. Answer, undoubtedly fantastic.
Oh!
Okay. So
Okay. Oh, God, don't look. Oh. I mean, here's the problem. I can't tell if that's gross because it's canned food or if it's British. It's because it's British food. Because that's kind of what British food looks like. This is... If you guys ever wonder why all of the traditional British restaurants have been replaced with curry places, it's because this is what their food looks like.
A little bit more of a stew look than Christmas dinner looked, really. In fact, it kind of looks like a Christmas dinner not for humans, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that doesn't look like that's supposed to be. I get it's just
Marvelous.
if it's just stew, then sure, okay.
Well, you can't argue with that, can you? Exactly like you would get in an expensive carvery if you were, for some reason, somebody who had really upset the people who ran the carvery. Go on then, lump of turkey. I think it's turkey. Could be horse.
So this is worse than the baseline bad
right.
British food.
A little bit dry. Sticks to your teeth, oddly.
What blows me away is that this can of brown congealed semi-liquid is it was marketed with a can with somebody having a Brussels sprout on a fork with it.
Is that part of the chipolato which seems to have disintegrated? That's very... Wow. So sort of watery and...
Our Christmas dinners are at least solid normally.
It just kind of disintegrated in your mouth. Actually, it was like something out of those Hunger Breaks tins. What is this? Potato, presumably? Tastes like a bit of cooked potato. Can't say much about that. Carrot. There we are. And that's it. That's Christmas dinner, apparently. I don't really know if you can market that as Christmas dinner with a straight face, can you? I mean, technically, it's got some of the ingredients, but it's not kind of got the whole ethos of what Christmas dinner is about. The good thing is, it's probably by far...
It doesn't have the ethos. It doesn't have the racist relative for you to get in an argument with. You know? It doesn't have... I mean, it kind of maybe is like Christmas dinner mixed with the not-so-subtle criticism from extended family members that you get over the dinner table. If you took that feeling and applied it to Christmas dinner, it does sort of look like one.
Far the nicest thing I've had out of one of these cans. The bad thing is, it's of course far more expensive and supposedly upmarket. Upmarket. Well, if you really need a conclusion to this video, I would heartily not recommend this to anybody. And just cook something and eat it. It'll be 40 times nicer. Merry Christmas.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, that was a food crime. That was a crime against humanity. In a can. Let's watch something to break our brains of that. So what's better than that? I would eat this if it meant finally to have a Christmas dinner alone. Oh, you poor soul. I'm kind of bummed out that, not only, because our usual thing is that when we go to Christmas, we go to America because Kelly's family, we only get to see them once a year and it's Christmas time. But, like, there's that. So, like, not only is that not happening because the border is not even open, like, it's just not going to happen, but also we would have to, like, quarantine for 2 weeks when we got back from America where, like, all the COVID's happening. But the other one is now it's looking like I'm not even going to be able to have Christmas with my parents who just live, like, about an hour from here. So, might just be me and Kelly and the cats. Which is, you know, I like my family, and all of the judgmental relatives are dead now, so it's kind of nice. Anyways, this is How We Pay For It, the case for a wealth tax in Canada by Waffle to the Left. If Hillary were president, Tristan would get to go to Christmas brunch. Yo, we do brunch. My family does brunch on New Year's Day, and my dad cooks it, and it's good. I haven't done that in a while either.
Before we get started, let's all agree that Black Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter, and all cops are work on this video.
Yes, it's the video that came out at this time of the year. I did one of these too. Let's turn it down a little bit, though. That was a bit loud.
For the uprising, and while it doesn't address what's happening directly, I hope it sheds some light on the systemic racism within the capitalist mode of production, and offers one solution to start addressing the inequality that too many racialized people in this country live with. Thank you. Alright, so today we're going to waffle over money, and we're going to peek at this issue through 3 gaps: the wage gap, the wealth gap, and the tax gap. And then I'm going to answer the one question that plagues anyone who's ever fought for social or economic justice. How will you pay for it? But first, let's set the stage by looking at who's been most affected by job losses in Canada. Because there were a lot of jobs lost, and then a lot of jobs. In fact, aside from...
I like that this is like a Muzak rendition of If I Had $1 Million. It's so perfect.
From a brief blip in 1982, this is the highest unemployment rate we've seen since war times.
I bet you I can tell you everything about this first story.
Okay, Mark, go right ahead.
Nearly 1/3 of all the job losses in Canada were in the
Extra nice touch because the Bare Naked Ladies are like a Toronto area band.
hospitality industry.
Majority of our members are people of color, immigrants, and you know, they do live paycheck to paycheck.
And here we were thinking COVID was the great equalizer.
More Canadian content creators had to make use of 90s TVO PSAs. I have to get Astar, the robot from Planet Danger, to be in one of my videos.
But actually, racialized Canadians have been hit hardest in terms of cases and financially, and reports show that women and younger workers are bearing the brunt of lost incomes.
People who were laid off were more likely to be female, younger, working in less secure, lower-paying jobs. In other words, those who could least afford it.
The CCPA did the math and found that 40% of youth and half of workers making less than $16 an hour had lost their income. That stat goes beyond youth, because minimum wage workers span the entire age spectrum. And due to the national shortage of PPE, these same workers face the impossible choice of risking their health to pay the bills, or refusing work and losing access to the CERB, no doubt, without quite a legal
Watch
battle.
all this, it'll go overtime. Oh, yeah. Well, shoot. I guess we'll just watch it as far as we can go, and then we'll just finish the stream wherever we get.
No region and almost no sector was spared.
I mean, yeah, obviously...
It's a smaller bread tuber, so I feel like it's good to draw some attention.
Everyone's been impacted, but it's clear that the biggest job losses have happened in food service, retail, education, and healthcare, which have a predominantly female workforce.
Yeah, that's the pink-collar
Restaurants, hotels, bars, stores that all had to close. You know, we've been talking a lot about how hard women have been hit at the front of this pandemic in terms of jobs lost, but as those jobs move more to traditionally male-dominated industries, construction and manufacturing, we are seeing those that area narrow as well.
And while there were fewer jobs lost in the high-wage construction sector, the collapse of auto manufacturing in Ontario has meant that men's wages on average have stayed flat for 20 years, despite gains made in other sectors.
It's true.
You can see this in the 2016 census data as well, where the individual median income in Ontario rose at half the rate of the average Canadian, or a quarter of the rate of the 2% cost of living increase. But
it's all freaking not only like growing inequality, but also fucking Alberta oil money. That's the thing about Canada. That's like a weird part about this country, is that like you have people like me who grew up in like the suburbs, and like, you know, like lived around the Toronto area, and like every job that is available is going to be this like minimum wage, you know, service economy job. And then like you could do like a full-time job where like you would go to like the middle of nowhere and like mine minerals or like chop down trees or whatnot. And the thing is, like, for so many Canadians, that's the default job you do when you're an adult. Like when you're like, if you're like in Alberta, you go to the oil sands. If you're like in BC, you go do like, you know, lumber stuff. And it's just like, it's weird because like a job like me, like I would never think in a million years, like, man, I'm strapped for cash. I'm gonna go like sign up to go work in a gold mine in like the Canadian Shield, while like it would be very gainful employment. It's a thing that that'd be that way. And it's just like it's such like a strange like dichotomy. Like you wouldn't even think about it if you didn't like live like in different parts of the country. There's a big divide.
Hashtag not all men are hurting.
Oh no.
The professional and managerial class in those sectors in mining and oil and gas have actually seen more jobs created during this time. Rising oil prices from 2000 to 2014, hey, how'd that get there? Anyway, it actually lifted the median individual income.
Would you consider him a bread tuber? I don't know. Like the thing is, breadtube is just the name of a Reddit, a subreddit, and if it can be posted on there, then I guess it is.
In Alberta by 36% over the decade, almost triple the national average. But the good times don't last forever. The reality is that women have been disproportionately affected, representing 2/3 of all jobs lost.
Oops.
Many of which are among younger women. They represent almost 100% in sectors such as healthcare, social assistance, insurance, and real estate. And for those working contract to contract, such as personal care assistants, cleaners, and cashiers, well, they don't qualify for the CERB. And these numbers don't take into account those who have left the labor market altogether. Still seen as the primary caregiver among much of society, many women are unable to return to work while they're at home taking care of children or others who may be sick.
Here, I'll put a link in the
as
chat.
a society which has cracks in the system at the best of times, those cracks really widen at the worst of times, and I think this certainly qualifies.
But as we saw last time, calling it cracks is underselling things just a bit. The average Canadian family haven't seen their wages increase in basically 4 decades. And stagnating wages are even worse for women, especially racialized women. All of this is compounding to create a serious income inequality problem for the working class. Can we even afford Dijon ketchups anymore?
Yeah, Canada is a mess. Neoliberalism is here and it's strong.
A study of census data found that in Toronto, for example, white women were making...
Is that why all of Thought Science 4 jobs are in the service industry? I mean, Matt like grew up in Newfoundland, so I think he grew up in the suburbs of like a city, of a town or whatever, but I don't know.
Making more than any racialized group of women, and almost all racialized groups of men, while still earning 22% less than white men.
Dijon ketchup
Across
is
the
a bare
board,
naked ladies
women
joke.
are making less than men of the same background, and in several cases, median incomes for racialized women are less than half of what a white man gets paid. In Winnipeg, where 1 in 10 people are Indigenous, their incomes overall are lower than everyone else, with Indigenous women making 30% less than non-Indigenous men. And I know what you're thinking, but you can control the data for factors like hourly versus salary and education, and still in 95% of occupations, women are making less. So
None of us have $1 million. I know. I'm a fancy multi-thousandaire.
True that the gender wage gap has closed 5% over 20 years, we may have hit the limit to that growth.
There's not the same room for growth in the next 20 years that there was in the last 20 years. There isn't another 50% of women waiting in the wings to give more time into the labor market, and you're not going to get another 50%, you're not going to double again the rate of post-secondary attainment. So we've played the women can work just as hard as men card, and we've worked the card of get better educated and get a better job, and this is where we're at.
Similar effects have been seen among workers in the LGBTQ+ community, with both gay and lesbian people making less than straight men, with only lesbian women making more than straight women. And there's another group that struggle with low incomes and have yet to be given any government aid.
I've received a number of questions from Canadians living with disabilities. They are also living on a lower fixed income, and they're wondering if something like the one-time payment that was announced yesterday for seniors is in the cards for them. What would you say?
We're going to look at seniors and people with disabilities. It's no wonder they're asking. We've got National Access Awareness Week coming up the week after next, so I would look for something exciting that week.
Don't you think it's weird the Liberals would wait 3 months for a photo op before giving aid to a group that lives on a low income at twice the rate of those without a disability? That includes more than 50% of single parents and 50% of those over 45. All this while census data shows wages for low income earners rose just 0.2% over the decade and 1.5% for low income seniors.
Government statistics put the number of Canadians living below the poverty line at nearly 3.5 million. In reality, the number of people unable to cover their basic needs is likely higher.
Calculations are tied to the needs of a specific family of 4, and it currently doesn't include Indigenous people or those who live in the territories, though Stats Canada is working on that. The Liberals have committed to cutting poverty in half by 2030.
That didn't sound terribly reliable. Let's get a second opinion.
1 in 7 Canadians lives in poverty.
There's a lot of us out there that work our butts off, and we have too much pride to go to the government with our hands out. What are we supposed to do? Who's looking out for us?
Okay, they gotta do something. Come on.
The chief economist for the TD Bank and the chief economist for the CCPA agree on what the problem is. You say it can't be solved by individuals. What have you got up your sleeve?
First of all, don't make things worse if you're the government.
And so all the parties got together and unanimously approved the wage subsidy. And well, it had a few issues for the working class. Not least of which is that it reinforces wage gap inequality, which means, as we've seen, women, racialized Canadians, and people with disabilities have less money earmarked for them than white men do. For example, someone who makes $30 an hour, they'll receive...
Yeah, so everyone's like, Trudeau sucks. He does suck and is terrible. What makes me sad is that every time, like, Fire Trudeau or Trudeau Bad shows up on trending on Twitter, it always ends up being a bunch of like weird QAnon Albertans, and I'm like, oh jeez, come on. I just want to dunk on Justin Trudeau on Twitter during a time where it's trending, and not have to like see a sea of like hooting chuds from Alberta. Ah, boy.
Receive twice as much aid as someone making minimum wage. And they didn't factor in tips at all, so people who rely on that as a major part of their income will make less than they typically would. So I don't get why Canadians aren't up in arms that they've tied pandemic aid to our employer. We wouldn't accept it if they tried to do that with healthcare right now. Doesn't it make more sense to send cash directly and universally to people? Is it so bad if those on a lower income have more money to pay down their debts or spend stimulating the economy? We could focus on retooling supply chains for essential products and services and not have to worry about reopening the economy so fast. I don't know, I guess it's all for small businesses, right?
When we launched the
Liberal Party, man, has got I don't know what to do about it. It's such like a fucking albatross around the neck of Canadian politics. This like center-right party has been controlling the country for like almost its entire existence. And just I don't know, like I've known like 2 people who were ever excited about it as a political party, like and both of them were obnoxiously rich. But like, yeah.
This program, I talked about the neighborhood spot.
The NDP really does need to like stop playing, like, you know, stop being babies, stop acting like little babies, and stop like having this like weird 2008 Obama campaign beveled edge aspect to them, and they need to start being like, you know what, fuck you, you neoliberal slime.
It would support the local restaurant, the salon.
He's a supervillain with that beard. He is a supervillain.
The gym that had been forced to close or seen business dry up. At the same time, we've also broadened eligibility for this benefit.
And don't get it twisted. It makes sense to have a program supporting small businesses, but broadened eligibility means that one of the largest federal...
I know very few people who like our center-right leading coalition government, but somehow they still vote for him. Yeah, man. Here, Canadians are so like ingrained with strategic voting, and almost every vote for the Liberals is more a vote against the Conservatives, and I hate it so much.
defense in our history is going to provide aid to companies with billions in profit, like Suncor, who will receive $140 million. And ew, Post Media are taking $20 million? Subsidies are also going to companies who we could be investing in by renationalizing our crown corporations.
So this morning, I can confirm that we will extend the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy by another 3 months to the end of August.
And these workers do deserve an income, of course. But you have to wonder if there's a more effective and equitable way to deliver financial assistance. Before the wage subsidy was doubled, the estimated cost was around $80 billion. That's about $2,000 for every single Canadian. It's about as much as the total transfers to provinces to account for stresses to healthcare and social assistance, transit, and education as well. And those transfers cover the whole year, by the way. The CERB is about 1/3 of the initial subsidy budget.
God damn. Yeah, Canada's a fake country that pretends that it's not a colony anymore, while most definitely being one. Just want to say thank you to Rudimentary Penny 91, Biden Choice Poop, Darth Cohen. Thank you guys for following over the last. So we are at 2:00, and I think I know exactly who we're going to be raiding. We're going to go and raid Birdie Blake, because Birdie Blake is a channel moderator and drew the art for this channel and fucking rules, and you're going to go watch them do some arts. So, been wanting to stream while Birdie was streaming forever. But anyways, everybody, have a good weekend, and have a really great evening, and see you all next week on Monday. Peace.